Spain, and then Spain colonized the Philippines. So that's how you get that pronunciation.
Thank you. All right, we are back live. This is House General and Housing. We just heard from our attorney, Daniel Leonard, and from Virginia Ladish, who works for ICTJ, about the first part of the process of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And Vanessa and Karen are part two of this process. And I'd just like to go ahead and we're going to go around the room and introduce ourselves. We are, as you may have heard at the very beginning of this, there are only 3 of us who were on the committee last year, several more who were in the House at the time. But so this is new context for all of us as a committee on the work that you're doing. So Representative Tom Stevens, I represent the Washington-Chittenden District.
Representative Sadia Lamont, representing Lamoille, Washington District.
Rep. Joe Parsons, Newbury, Topsom, and Groton.
Representative Emily Krasnow, South Burlington.
Representative Ashley Bartley, Fairfax and most of Georgia.
I'm Caleb Elder from Starksboro, Vermont.
Dennis Labounty. I cover Caledonia 3.
I'm Elizabeth Burrows. I represent Heartland, West Windsor, and Windsor.
I'm Larry Labor, and I represent Essex, Orleans.
I'm Mary Howard, and I represent Rutland District 6.
Robin Chestnut Hangerman, representing the Rutland Bennington District.
So welcome to General and Housing, and I don't know who's starting.
Well, I'm going to jump in. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, members of the committee, for inviting us to talk about the Truth and Reconciliation Commission selection panel this morning. I'm Karen Tronsgaard-Scott. I am the humble co-chair of the panel. I serve along with Vanessa Santos Eugenio, and we'll let her introduce herself. I am just really honored to be here and honored to be a part of this process, and also want to offer my congratulations for the thoughtful process that many of you engaged in last year in creating the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in this process. My day job is that I work at the Vermont Network Against Domestic and Sexual Violence, and my role there is as its executive director. And Vanessa, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hello again, I'm Vanessa Santos Eugenio, she, her pronouns. In my day work, I work for the City of Burlington. I'm our Talent Development and Diversity Manager. I'm also a faculty instructor teaching intercultural communications, and I also happen to be on the Yoga Equity Project out of Burlington. I wear lots of other hats, but I'll spare us. As many of us do wear hats here. So just in brief, a little bit about me. Karen, if you want to jump back in.
Okay, great. So what we thought we'd do today, we were asked to come and talk a little bit about the selection committee and talk about where we are in the process. We're happy to answer any questions or to offer any insights that you may want to know about. I want to say that I was so heartened to hear this morning from Virginia, who talked about the intention behind the way that this commission is being formed and the space that you all you baked it into the law. I think that's really important. And we have felt that spaciousness as we do our work together. We have been meeting since October, and our schedule is a weekly schedule. So we meet every week, and we are moving through the process of building out the recruiting part of this bigger process. I want to let you know that we have a fantastic selection panel. Our members are really incredible. I would say, I'll give you their names, but I would say overall, every one of us has the experience of discrimination in our lives. We're all impacted people. And we also there's a deep commitment among all of us. Each of us have done work to dismantle and address oppression here in Vermont and in some cases across the country. So our members are Judith Chalmer, N. Bruce Duthu, Jennifer Morton Dow, Etan Nasreddin Longo, Nina Ridahibinyo, sorry, massacring that name, Vanessa Santos Eugenio and myself, Karen Tronsgaard Scott, and we were elected by majority to co-chair the select committee. Vanessa and I do that together, and it is an honor to work with Vanessa in that role. I just want to say that. This group of people are incredibly dedicated to this work, and I would want you to know that not only as I said, we've all been impacted by discrimination, we all have a deep commitment to anti-oppression. Each one of us brings areas of expertise. Vanessa talked about hers. I can say that in addition to what I do at the Vermont Network, I teach a class on restorative justice at the law school. So we all bring in these various perspectives and various areas of expertise. And the thing that I think that is so helpful among this panel is that we have a shared vision and a shared worldview. And we take this work very seriously, and we have a deep commitment to doing all we can to setting up the commission for success on behalf of the people that have been impacted by state discrimination in Vermont. So what an honor it is to do this work with these people and in collaboration with all of you. Vanessa, I'll turn it over to you to fill the committee in on the details of our work.
Yeah. And just before that, I just want to say we've been so fortunate to be able to take the time with this team to build trust amongst ourselves, and really taking this thoughtful lens to the work that we're doing to ensure that we're doing it well. And the meetings that we've had have given us a lot of time to focus on relationship building, to ask the right questions, and find the opportunities to lead the process with integrity. And so thank you all for that. So I'll go ahead and start here. I believe that you all also have this in copy, and if you don't, we're happy to send it along, as well as some bios about our committee members, so you can learn a little bit more about us.
We do have this unwritten testimony on our webpage, and if you could send us the bios as well, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because we wear so many hats, right? So you've heard a little bit about this, but our selection committee was established. We do weekly meetings on Mondays. They're all done via Zoom because we're spread all across the state, and that's the way that we can ensure the most time together for about an hour and 10 minutes per week. Our selection committee has the co-chairs, both of us who you've already met, and we want to make sure that in our meetings that we're holding space, that we're ensuring that everybody's thoughts, their voices, their perspectives are heard. Spacious is to work with our state agencies and to make sure that we're also the process, right? So there's transparency for the community. So the minutes, the documents, everything that we create, including the timeline, our work plan, is all transparent for folks to see. We also had met, Karen and I, with the Agency of Administration to talk about systems for the commission budget, the budget for this year, as well as projections for the future year, of course, with their support, especially around finding physical space for the commissioners and their salary for all of their positions for their small staff, including the 3 commissioner roles. Let's see here. We also established pathways for ensuring the job descriptions and recruitment so that it aligns with the HR processes at the state level. That also includes what that would mean around outreach and being very intentional so that we're casting the broadest ability to bring in voices and perspectives that we might not typically hear, right? So broad range of experience, industries, and backgrounds. So what does advertising look like, and money that needs to be allocated in that way? But then also looking at the recruitment process itself, right? What kinds of questions are we asking? What are the methodologies that we're utilizing to, again, create the most inclusive environment? And then also, how are we including the community? And with it, knowing what our matrices are, what our standing questions are, what the skills that we're looking for, not just amongst one commissioner, but really the constellation of the 3 commissioners operating together. So being very mindful about that work. We had decided with our work plan that the March 31st date makes the most sense. And so we have a clearly projected plan, which you will all have if you don't already. Right now, we're working on the job description and the prospectus of the commissioner position to allow for the most context about the role, especially for newcomers that might not know a lot about it. So fulfilling resources for them to have to make well-informed decisions. The way that we are working with the HR department is that Bill Myers is the person that we're working with, who's just been marvelous and so supportive through the process, is they're going to essentially collect the applications, the resumes, and the cover letters, and any accompanying documents, and essentially batch send those to our committee. And then we're going to be responsible for culling through all of that information, right? And then designing the subsequent quest of process of what the application will be, and the determination of who we bring back as a commissioner or recommended. Let's see here. So our goal, just so we're transparent here, is our goal is that advertising and outreach will be in mid-January, so coming up very soon here. And then that way we can establish in February interviewing times, making sure that we have the public inquiry and forum. I really love that Virginia was sharing about the bios being publicly posted and giving that forum. I think that creates a lot more access in addition to the public meetings that we can hold. And our goal, like I said, is to make sure that we have our selections completed by the very end of March on the 31st. It's an ambitious goal. I do think the earlier December timeline was a little bit tight, and I think we would have lost a lot in the process. So this extension, I think, is really going to help support us to do this well and thoughtfully, and also very heart-centered, which is really the center of all of this work. So that's it from me. Karen, unless there's anything else to add in case I've missed it, we're happy to hold the floor for questions, inquiries, thoughts, feelings that you might have.
I'm good to go. Thank you, Vanessa, and wonder if the committee members have questions or anything you'd like to let us know.
You talked about the selection panel met and elected you all the co-chairs, which I think is a great, rather than having one chair, I think having the two chairs is a really good choice. Will you be hiring the executive, will you be hiring the lead commissioner out of the three commissioners? Is there a lead commissioner that's being chosen, or is that just going to be, or is it a triumvirate of commissioners who will then hire the executive director?
Act 128 does not articulate the need for a lead commissioner, and so we're looking at those positions as being integrated. And so one of the things that we're looking for among candidates that are interested in being commissioners is evidence that they are good collaborators. That's a skill set that we think is really important for the commissioners, especially when we think about collaborating around a leadership role, a very visible leadership role. So that's something that we have not identified the model where there's a lead commissioner. Perhaps the commissioners themselves will want to do that.
We envisioned at one point last year that because there's the possibility for several individual truth in whether it's reconciliation or accountability, it was a word that some folks preferred rather than reconciliation. And just curious, do you think that the commissioners should be siloed into a particular interest or experience? So for instance, is there a commissioner that's going to be in charge of indigenous conversation or any of the other groups that we envision that might be asking for some form of truth through this commission?
Vanessa, do you want to go ahead and respond? And then I'll add something if I want to.
Sure. I think part of it is that we have to also look at who applies, right? We can have our ideas about having very focused groups and try to lead folks there. But I think ultimately it's about the constellation of the three people, the skill sets that they bring, the backgrounds that they have, and amongst themselves, sort of designating how they want to go about that work to be effective. And this is maybe my own personal thought that I'll add here is, I think we can have ideas about how we want it to go, but ultimately we are not the commissioners, right? So this is a situation where I feel like I have to hold on with the idea with light hands, right? Rather than sort of gripping onto it, which may be the wisest thing, because my perspective might not be the right way. And the three commissioners might have a very different vision for how they want to execute that work well. Karen, please, I'd love to hear your additional thoughts too.
Thank you, Vanessa. I agree with everything you just said, and I appreciate this question. I also want to say that our vision and our worldview is about cross-identity truth-telling. And even when I look down the list of the 7 of us, we all hold many identities and have experienced, have been impacted by discrimination across all of our identities. And so I agree with Vanessa, we're holding this lightly, but one of our members, N. Bruce Dutho, who's a professor, expert in Indigenous communities and a professor at Dartmouth, talked about the characteristics of the people that we're seeking having to do with people of deep integrity who hold public trust and who have the ability to hear the truth and hear the stories, who can dial back from their individual experiences and their individual perspectives and identities to see the larger picture and be able to hold that larger picture. And I really appreciated the way he articulated that. He's done it a couple times in our committee meetings because for me, it paints a picture of a really clear picture of the kind of the people, of the values and the place in the world we want people to embody, rather than it's not identity is complex and important, but it goes beyond this idea of identity. As Vanessa said, the commissioners may make a decision to develop any kind of model that works for them. But we know from the experiences outside of Vermont that if this process is to have meaning in the long term, we have to find a way to do this together and to actually embody the way that we want this, our state and our world to look in the future. And so we have to figure out how to sit at the table together and hear the hard truths and move forward from them with a commitment to reconciliation, accountability, defining what those words mean, and figuring out what serves Vermonters in the best possible way.
Great, thank you. A question about HR again, just to be clear. I'm really glad that the system is working with you so closely and has been, not a burden on the process. So if I heard you correctly, though, that they're going to be, you'll create whatever advertising or outreach you need to create, but the return address on resumes will be for Vermont Department of Human Resources, who will then deliver the package of at the deadline. We'll develop. You'll receive this, and then I'm assuming with a light touch, you'll be developing whatever the next part of that process is. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, that's accurate, because we want to be consistent and in alignment with what the rest of the state does from that recruitment perspective, but we're responsible for going through the process. And part of that is because a lot of us don't work for the state, right? And so we don't have that established sort of relationship. We're not like a department with a liaison and sort of culling through resumes in that way. So we're responsible for that body of work. And luckily, and thankfully, on our committee, we have folks with the background of recruitment, myself included in that. And so we have that skill set already. So yes, that is accurate. Where we will rely a bit on support is also in the recruitment effort. We'll be deciding where we want it to go and recommendations in addition to some of the established relationships that the state already has. So we're really combining our resources in that way, including funding, to be able to make sure that we're getting the word out there. And I want to be very intentional that we're not looking for just certain industries, but we're really thinking broad range, right? Because we want people with varied backgrounds and experiences to inform this work. We're not just looking for lawyers or just educators, but really thinking expansively.
Does anyone else have questions for our witnesses this morning? Do you have any questions for us? I mean, we're kind of, this is informational for us. And I'm interested and excited to hear about the process. But again, as we create these walls between us and what the end product will be, it's kind of like, there will be things that we can do in terms of funding and whatnot, but it really is written in statute about what the next processes are. And when you're done selecting, I'm going to ask you to come back in to grade our work and to see how this process worked. I don't anticipate necessarily another Truth and Reconciliation Commission per se to be created, but I just want to find out from when you're done with this process where it worked and where, where what we should pay attention to in future, possible legislation. Because again, you are not, it's interesting, Vanessa, about how you're not a state employee. So this relationship with human resources is interesting to me to hear about, and we'll see how that functions at the end. But certainly if you have, Karen, you reached out in November about how to deal with the budget part, and that worked out great. But when you need that help, please reach out and contact us so that we can make sure the work doesn't get delayed because of bureaucracy.
Well, I know you would want to know that not only have our human resources partners been so helpful, but the Agency of Administration has also been incredibly helpful and supportive with no hesitation, fully supportive of what we're trying to do, making sure that our members have access to per diems that, because we think it's, as apparently did you, think it's important to pay people for their time. And I know that I'm not speaking for Vanessa, but I suspect that she might share a deep appreciation for the partnership that we have with this committee and your interest in our work, as well as your interest in hearing how things go at the end. So we would be very happy to come back.
Great. Anything else for our witnesses? Representative Howard?
Hello, and I am a returning member of this committee. So I, was there in the beginning of this discussion, and I just want to thank you both very much for appearing today and for keeping us informed. You have a lot of work ahead of you, and we truly appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. The other thing I want to just state too out loud is that questions might end up popping up even after the call ends and maybe on your drive home. And so please do feel free to reach out to us, and we're happy to keep that transparency, that connection open as questions pop up, or just offering of ideas too.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for making time for us this morning. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. It's great to see everybody.
And thanks, Virginie. It's good to see you. Feel better?
Thank you. Good to see you all.
All right. We can go off live.
I have a question.
Oh, yeah, sure.
No, not for them, but
Yeah, we can.
where was that woman from, the one who's not from Vermont?
Virginie?
Yeah.
So she's living in Maryland.
Okay.
Offices of the International Center for Transitional Justice are in DC and New York, and wherever else they're needed.
Thank you.
And if you want more information, our website is ictj.org.
Thank you.
And so I guess while we're still live, does anybody have any questions of me or on this topic right now? Okay, then I guess we can go offline.